Hello and welcome to Inside Africa. I'm Aisha Sasay. This week on the show, it's one of the most sacred acts of the Zulu people. We'll take you inside an ancient wedding ceremony played out in modern times. Africa gains 2 seats on the United Nations Security Council, but should those seats be permanent? And what will Nigeria do with this 2-year opportunity? And Grammy-winning singer Alicia Keys takes us on her eye-opening trip to Africa and talks about how the experience changed the way she wrote her next album. She's traveled the world on tour, but for singer Alicia Keys, nothing spoke to her like a visit she once took to Africa. It moved her to help create a charity and influenced her next album. CNN's TJ Holmes sat down with the singer to find out what caused the profound effect.
It's crazy when you think about it, how you can change the lives of people forever for the price of a pair of shoes.
Alicia Keys didn't set out to do humanitarian work in Africa. In a way, Africa came to her. It was 2002. Her first album was climbing the charts. She won Grammys for Best New Artist and Song of the Year, but she never expected an invitation to perform in Africa.
I was wowed that people that far away would know my music.
Maybe she knew that 40% of the population there was infected with HIV/AIDS, but those numbers didn't really hit home until she came face to face with the people there.
When I started to meet kids my age and younger who were personally dealing with it, lost their parents, watched their parents die, then had to raise their younger brothers and sisters if they're 14 and they're raising their 7- and 6-year-old brother and sister.
The people she met changed her life.
Can you send an angel?
And ever since, this 12-time Grammy Award-winning singer has been working to change theirs.
All they kept saying when I was leaving, don't forget us. Please don't forget us.
Within a year, Keys co-founded the Keep a Child Alive organization with filmmaker and activist Lee Blake. Their mission is to build clinics and provide kids and their families with medicine that will save their lives.
Picture your brother, picture your mother, picture your daughter, picture your son, and picture them suffering greatly. You would not tolerate it. You wouldn't. You would say, whatever I have to do to change that, I'm going to do it.
On December 1st, World AIDS Day, Alicia Keys will release her 4th CD, The Element of Freedom. She says it'll show a different side of Alicia Keys.
I'm renewed and I'm reborn, so you will feel a different side of me, definitely. A freer side of me, a more confident side of me, a stronger side.
The first single, Doesn't Mean Anything, is already out. She performed it for the first time live this week.
Everybody knows about what you do behind the piano. But what do you want to be known for, maybe years down the road?
I want to be known as an incredible global citizen and a person who has made their mark in an inspiring, positive way. I'll tell you one thing, though. They're going to make it through it. And they're going to have something serious to say. They're going to change the world. We're going to change the world. And I felt proud that that was my generation. So this is my generation. We about to do something really big.
TJ Holmes, CNN, Atlanta.
From a singer affected by what she's seen in Africa to a photographer who's witnessed the violent life behind rebel lines in Liberia's 2003 civil war. Tim Hetherington takes us through photos he took during his time there, now on display in London.
I was living in West Africa when a friend of mine, a TV friend, asked me if I would come and live with a rebel group, the rebels that were pushing Charles Taylor from power in 2003. And these photos show what it was like living with them. We were the only journalists to live behind rebel lines, and the resultant film was called Liberian Uncivil War. I decided to stay on after the war and follow the evolution of what was going on in Liberia, the transformation of power. I was interested to know why these young men had fought for what they had fought for. And, you know, basically this evolution of power led me to kind of see the rawness of politics and the kind of the way that the power of young men is being harnessed by politicians. What was interesting in Liberia as being the only photographer who lived behind rebel lines was that the work also became a document of sorts, and the picture here of the mortaring is the only picture that exists of the rebel group that mortared the city. The idea of documenting the faces, of putting responsibility on the kind of chaos that had happened in Liberia, making that very understandable became something very important. And so I started photographing those who bore responsibility for the war, as well as just the ordinary people caught up in it. There's a picture here of Joe Bala, who is Secretary General of the Lerd Rebel Group and then became head of the Port Authority. This character, George Dway, who was a Kran militiaman during the war and was held responsible for personally killing a whole family, and here he was at the inauguration of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf drinking champagne. During the war, the fighters would take over territory and villages, and that after they had won that territory, they would often daub their names or graffiti onto the houses. And I found documenting the graffiti in Liberia as a very coherent way of almost documenting the war, as a separate way of representing what happened there. There are pictures here of violence, of the names of individual commanders. We're in a fancy gallery in London, and it's almost an ill-befitting place to have work like this. But the reason why I brought the work here is it marks the culmination of the whole project, a project during which I've documented Liberia consistently over many years.
An annual honour usually given to a former African leader is left with no honoree. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at what happened to the 2009 Mo Ibrahim Prize for Achievement in African Leadership. And this man did win an honour, a big one, the World Food Prize. We'll hear how his plans could change the world.